Okay. I'm Larry Bill. I'm from Cape Girardeau County, and they asked me to say a few words about veterans. I'm a veteran myself. I served 13 years active duty in the Air Force as a pilot and then 9 years in reserves. And what I'd like to do, if you're a veteran, please raise your hand so we all know who you are, and please give these guys a round of applause. Thank you very much. I think it's very important that we recognize our veterans. I remember back when I was in high school and college, Vietnam vets were coming back. They were treated terrible. And I think we're trying to make up for it now, and thank goodness we are, and I appreciate it. We almost have started to get used to this. A buddy of mine, he says when you start something out, you can't get anybody to help. You just put in the slot, God will provide, GWP. That's always the volunteer. And I'm starting to believe that anymore, because we were down on Poplar Bluff and we were coming up from a Patriot rally down there, actually involved with the reenactment of signing the Declaration of Independence. And when we got out to the driveway, of course I wanted to come to this too, car was flat dead. And it seems like magically, and we only had 2.5 hours to get here or whatever it was, but somehow we got a ride to a dealership, we got a loaner car we talked them into giving us, and I think the hot dogs had to thaw out a little bit or something, and that delay allowed us to get here on time. So I guess GWP is a pretty good volunteer. But anyway, I'm a volunteer, or I'm a veteran myself, and you know, a lot of things happen when you're in the military, and I thought maybe I'd talk a little bit about what happened to me on some different occasions, and then how close to home sometimes things hit. Whenever I was going through pilot training, I finished training in T-37, and we were upgrading the T-38, which is a little bit more sensitive aircraft to fly, and I'm just going to tell a little story about that. But do we have any pilots here? I think, Bill, you're a pilot, aren't you? Anyway, you pilots will understand that there's a special poem that was written by this guy named John Gillespie. It's called High Flight, and he talks about flying. And he talks about doing acro and loops and going up, and he talks about going higher than either larks or even eagles fly. And the very last line is, you know, I have so much fun out there, I felt like I reached out and touched the hand or the face of God. That's how it ends. It says, I reached out and touched the face of God. Well, anyway, I was in pilot training, and like I said, we were upgrading the T-38, and it was a lot faster, it was a lot more sensitive. And Major Welch and I went up one day, and he was going to teach me how to fly landing patterns. And it's a little bit technical, but it really doesn't matter whether you understand it. But anyhow, whenever you fly T-38 in the final turn, you're actually approaching a stall situation, and the aircraft actually buffets like it's going to go into a stall all the way through the turn. So you have to have real finesse, you know, while you're doing that. And in order to make the turns, in order actually to fly the airplane, you have to fly it at that configuration. So anyway, we got down and we're flying, and he's going, Bill, your patterns are too loose. You got to tighten up. You got to tighten up. He would show me one, and I'd fly it too loose. You got to tighten up. You got to tighten up. So we got in the final turn. And he says, you're not tight enough yet. And I thought, well, I'll show you. So I jerked back on that stick, and we went from a slight stall buffet into a full accelerated stall. And that airplane started dropping immediately. So we both hit, you know, put the throttles to afterburner, roll the wings level, release the pressure, which is a stall recovery procedure for just about all of them. But anyhow, I can still hear the RSU controller yelling at us, going, you know, in the final turn, go around, go around, go around. So we recovered probably about 150 feet or something like that over the runway and climbed out. Well, Major Welch, of course, took the airplane, and he landed us, and we went in the briefing room, and he said, Lieutenant Bill, he says, I think we reached out and touched the face of God today, didn't we? You know. So, I mean, if you're in the military, you got tons and tons of those kind of stories. But anyway, like I said, you've got to remember that whenever we send our people into harm's way, I mean, the accident potential is also there as well as the combat potential. Whenever I was an instructor pilot at Shepherd Air Force Base, there was another, it was the same exact circumstances, and a pilot, an instructor pilot, and the student was out, and they were flying the same airplane, the T-38, and they were flying the same pattern exactly, and they were trying to, like I said, get it around, and unfortunately on that day they didn't recover, and they crashed. And so we lost 2 comrades on that specific occasion. Had another instance too whenever I was in bombers, and we were sitting on the alert pad, and the wing commander, they called him Alpha, he came out and he talked to us and was giving us a rah-rah briefing, and he didn't seem too upset really, but he's just very stoic, I guess you'd call him. And over the radio, the command post said, Alpha, this is command post, and he said, okay, go ahead. And they said, the victim is confirmed dead. And then the guy didn't even blink. He just said Roger and acknowledged that, and then he went ahead with the rest of his briefing. And what had happened was the fire department decided to have an exercise, and one of their firemen was out there working, was running around, and you know how crazy things can get in the military and all that. And he actually had gotten completely run over by one of those big pumpers, and those things are like about 100 tons or whatever, and that killed him right there. So anyway, the potential is always out there for veterans, to end up in harm's way, and then they can get really close. Now, after I got out of the Air Force, I went to the reserves, and my job up in the reserves was actually scheduling and coordinating airlift. And I did that for many years, and it was before September 11th, so whenever I did it, we put in, we would schedule airlift over to Saudi Arabia, over to Kuwait, Kosovo, all over the world, and that was our job. Well, after September 11th, there was a lot of confusion going on, and of course everybody was upset. I was upset too. But somehow it just didn't seem real to me, and I had to go ahead and start coordinating airlift. We had to start making plans. We had to figure out what are we going to do to address these people over in Afghanistan, and of course I was a lieutenant colonel and on the staff at that time. And we started setting up supply routes and how we were going to get our troops into Afghanistan, and we actually had captured an airfield so we could start getting people in. And so it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and what I was doing is, at that time, is if there was a problem with an airplane, like it broke, or if the load wasn't right, or if the load wasn't on time, or whatever, it was my responsibility to coordinate the solution. So anyway, that's what I worked on that time. And like I said, when you're in the middle of a military operation, you don't really think about a whole lot of other things other than that current objective. So naturally, rather than worrying about, the victims of 9/11, we were focusing on just getting supplies going and getting our defense together. So anyway, I had this sergeant called me, and I think he was in Afghanistan at the time, and he said, Colonel, he says, I need some space on the C-17, and I said, well, now wait a minute. I said, it better be good requirement. I said, we've got some broken equipment over there we got to get back. We've got some other things we've got to get back, coming back out of Afghanistan. He said, well, I think we need to get these remains back to their family. And that's when it really hit, what the veterans are doing for us. And we've lost over 5,000 people now in this war. And we really need to unite behind them, and we need to make sure that whenever we commit troops, that there's for a good and a valid cause. So I want to tell you right now that it's very important that if you meet a veteran, you shake their hand, and you let them know that you appreciate what they did for you. Thank you very much, and God bless America.